every tool to supervise these banks better than they did. The debate has recently been fierce in the US with a lot of intense lobbying about a small tweak in some of the regulations of banks that the regulators capitulated in the US and also in the UK, which is not boding too well for the US, but it seems like they're not capable politically to do anymore. The system has become very fragile and very interconnected, and so when Lehman Brothers was allowed to file for bankruptcy in the US and was not bailed out, all hell broke loose, and a lot of harm was done, even though we have to remember that what started this crisis in the first place was a fairly modest decline in housing prices in the US that by itself, should not have caused the entire world banking system to get into so much trouble. The reason it did was because the system was so incredibly fragile that it couldn't absorb such losses.
The recession was great, but not great enough to discredit the lobby.
The people in power at these institutions and the politicians and the regulators and all the people who are in charge, the individuals involved rarely face serious consequences. And if tax money is being robbed from the Treasury to the tune of what is now estimated to be 36 billion euro from the German Treasury tax money, that is money that could be used for the population and is not there.
The sense that 2008 has not been dealt with in a fair way, meaning imposing costs on the people responsible, has contributed significantly to the rise of populism in various European countries, including Germany.
No, there has not been. Too big to fail is here. It was a mandate of the Dodd-Frank Act in the US that the Federal Reserve and other regulators do whatever it takes to solve this problem. And they haven't. They accepted essentially a situation in which a JP Morgan Chase can become as big as it is, as do others. So the US has, at the very least, something like 6 institutions that I don't believe anybody expects will ever be allowed to really go into any failure mechanism. Well, it's politics. It's the symbiotic relations that were mentioned before. It's the kicking cans down the road that's always more convenient for a politician, and just getting over some visible problem until the next one comes about. So there's just a lack of political will to do it. There's nothing really else that's preventing a better banking system. Very little. The stress tests are a sort of charade because the way they're conducted basically puts into some black box calculation of that spits out some kind of regulatory ratios, and they're not able to really capture market dynamics in a real situation.
Banks have been profitable and have rebuilt some equity, so any stress test would not really capture very much. But they never asked the question, suppose banks get into difficulties and react and begin to sell assets, and asset prices fall. What are the implications of second-round effects from those price movements? That's what really drove the downturn in September 2008 after the Lehman bankruptcy. So one of the main drivers of a banking crisis is simply not considered in stress tests.
There is is no reason that the bank should not have a lot more equity funding to fund all whatever it's doing. But they have incentive to take the upside that's magnified by the borrowing for themselves, for their shareholders, and leave the downsides to other people, thereby exploiting subsidies through taxes and subsidies through implicit and explicit guarantees. And it takes political will and well-designed regulations, and we saw that that was not happening after the crisis, despite the incredible harm that was caused and the spectacular bailouts that were needed to prevent the system from completely imploding.
All right.